take a while.
And this is how you come down. All right, here we go, blacktail enthusiasts, or maybe even deer enthusiasts all over. You never know. I don't know. But one thing I'm going to talk about today is shed antlers and blacktail deer. All right, because it's almost that time of year. And furthermore, what I think I may possibly be doing is taking all of the how-to content from my hunting apps and putting it on a website or even a channel on YouTube. All right. The app idea I came up with about 8 years ago. They said at the time I was 5 years ahead of the outdoor industry. And it's been a tough ride for me because you need the tech geeks to update the apps for Apple and Google Play. Every once in a while, they change whatever they change, which makes your apps not function. Very frustrating and very, very hard to keep a tech geek roped in because I don't have that much. It's not that much stuff for them to do or to get them to update it altogether. Very difficult. And at times the apps have needed an update and I couldn't get anybody. They're updated now, put through another $10,000 in there to do it, and they do function. But at the same time, what I think I might do, though, is I may take all the content, update it, and put it on the website or YouTube channel. But in the meantime, I'm going to start pumping out how-to videos on this YouTube channel. All right. Now it is February, I don't know what it is, the 21st or something. And right now, for me, where I hunt blacktail deer, it's too early for me to go look. The number one thing that stops me from looking is the snow load. There is a massive snow load still all covered. I can't even get near there. I could take a snowmobile, but it'd be an absolute waste of time for the energy and the time it would take me to climb those mountains where I roughly know a lot of these big bucks that I'm after are dropping their antlers. So I don't go and I will not start until that coastal mountains have melted off and those bedding shelves and slopes and those steep hills are starting to get exposed and 100% of all those bucks' antlers are on the dirt. A couple times I started really early and I've ran into bucks with their headgear still hanging on their head. So probably last week of March is pretty well the earliest if I could get to some of my spots. The last week of March is when I'm going to really start looking for shed antlers. All right? But I'm going to show you some shed antlers, to show you what you can learn from shed antlers and how important it is. And also, I think I might do this in another video, another topic, but there is a few things that very, very successful hunters all have in common. All right? And one of the number one characteristics, whatever, that very successful blacktail deer hunters have is a pile of shed antlers. The people that get the most game are the people that have the best and the most trail camera pictures and videos and shed antler piles. That's two common characteristics those people share. Why? Because if you're avid, you're keen, you want it so bad, you don't stop at the end of the hunting season and you concentrate your efforts on a select place that you have figured out where the game are probably are. You already have your favorite spots and you got those spots from sweating your ass off and going at it like a hungry dog. The difficulty in finding these blacktail deer sheds, it is so hard. It's been very, very hard for me. I mean, I've got a lot of them, but the more I looked, the more I learned and the more secrets revealed that made me take a step back and go, what? You gotta be kidding me. And one of those, you gotta be kidding me, is that I learned very early when I finally got my very first trail camera and I put it on this trail. What I know now to be a migration trail is the majority of the deer funneled out down that trail. And then later on, as the years progressed, I got more trail cameras and I monitored those trails for up to 40 kilometers. And lo and behold, one of the largest bucks I ever chased after, he would come down from way up in the mountains where they grow their antlers. He'd finally come down to where I was familiar with a zone where they passed through and rutted it up. And I'd have him on my trail cameras there, and I would hunt them, over the years, there's more of them, and they would come down and go back up, and come down and go back up, and come down and go back up, all through the fall and even into past hunting season and into December and even January. They're still rutting it up, going up and down that trail. Those are the handful of the hammer bucks that I have grown to know over years of maintaining absolute tunnel vision on this particular area. But then some other bucks would throw me for a loop, and I would hunt them in the fall in this one particular zone. They'd be there until late. And then, oh my God, if I didn't catch them on a trail camera, 36 kilometers away in late January. So, you see what a person can be up against, right? When you think you know where that buck hangs out, you saw him there in the fall during the rut, his antlers have got to be around here somewhere. And then meanwhile in January, he decided to book it for over 30 frickin' kilometers. And believe me, that was my buck I nicknamed number 2. I looked for his antlers, I don't know, for 7 years straight. I picked different hills over the course of 36 kilometers and scoured trying to find his antlers. I never found one. Not one. Very frustrating. But anyways, moving along. But the majority of the deer will funnel out through that migration trail. But those big, huge bucks, they'll go out by themselves and hang out on a hill all by themselves for the winter. I've proven it by trail camera finding antlers. I don't know where you hunt or what the terrain is like where you go, but I can share with you that fact. All right? Sometimes, other times I've gone in the fall and I've found both sides of hammer-roll bucks like this guy. I got this guy on trail camera a few times. Never got my eyes on him, but I was aware of him for a handful of years. Great big mature old buck. Look at that sucker. He's going backwards. Big heavy knurling. It's a record book blacktail buck. And he just came down from up on the top of the big mountains, rutted it up, crossed the valley, and he went up about 400 yards and spent the whole fall right there. Right where I hunted him. Dumped both sides. And I can only count on one hand how many times I've found both sides. So, but who knows? For all I know, I don't know. I only found one set of this guy's antlers. For all I know, the next fall, January, he might have went, I'm out of here. I'm gonna go 25 kilometers down the valley. That's how unpredictable blacktail deer are. Very frustrating. Once you start to learn the bucks in your area by finding sheds and, of course, trail cameras, then you start to figure out what a mature buck is in your area, right? Just how big a buck can get in your area when you think a buck is big. And you go shooting a decent 4-point. Like this is just your average blacktail right here. Look at this thing. It's a 4-point blacktail. Right? Lots of guys will shoot this in a heartbeat. I've got this guy on video caught up to this young 4-point. But getting back to what you learned from the antlers, you can see how thin this guy is, right? He's very thin. He's got no knurling, none of the bumps up the main beam. Same as this guy. He's got 4 points already, but he's thin. See, it probably looks bigger close to the camera, but here, I'll show you what a heavy one is beside this, all right? This is a great, big, massive, massive, heavy buck. Here's the difference. You see that? Am I showing that right? There's your difference right there. Look at this. That's a 4-point blacktail. That'll get anybody excited. But look at how big they can get. This is on the same hill. Same hill, these antlers. You see that? Huge. Past his prime. Massive, heavy buck. Lots of knurling. You see all those bumps? Look at all those bumps along the base. See them all that knurling? There's nothing on this young, smooth guy. See that? As an indicator of age, right? For me, this antler tells me, oh my God, look at the genetics on this mountain. And you'll never erase them. They'll always be there. It doesn't matter if I never got that buck. It doesn't matter. The only way you can erase those genetics from a mountain is if absolute genocide was thrown down on the deer in that entire valley. It's not possible. You're not going to erase it. So if there's a great big buck like this once, it's going to happen again. Bucks are just not all the same. Some bucks, like this guy right here, I found this is actually one of the 2 or 3 times I got both sides in the same bed off this buck, and coincidentally, this is the same buck that I screwed up on last fall and wounded with my bow. Same buck. And he was always a 2-point, just like this for, I think I knew this buck for 6 years, and he was always just a 2-point. He never changed, and he was old as dirt this last fall, and he was almost identical to what these antlers are, and I found these 3 years ago, just on the other side of the valley, up 400 yards. Same spot. He didn't book out for over 30 kilometers. But there you go. That's an example of this guy right now. When I found him this size, I think he was a little past prime, probably a year into regressing. He's got a bunch of knurling in the bottom. He's fairly heavy. He's just a genetically inferior blacktail for the hill, right? I'm going to show you guys that antler. Something. There we go. How's that? So anyway, there you go. That's an example of a buck I've known for 6 years at least. And I've watched him in the velvet. I've got him on trail cameras. I don't know how many times over the years at all elevations. I got a trail camera of this guy in chest deep snow, chasing does the second week of December, meaning he went all the way back up there again, even though it's chest deep snow. And then when he migrated out to go winter, he probably traveled only about 4 miles. So there you go. That's an inferior in the same spot where there's Godzilla, but there's always going to be that average buck with the average genetics like this. This guy never changed. But meanwhile, in the same area, exact same hill, same bucks, where you get the right doe and the right buck's genetics, it's got to be specifically the right doe and the right buck, and they made up, and then something crazy happens, like this. Look at that buck. That is an absolute hammer blacktail buck. Where is he? About like that. He's over 150-inch blacktail. Whoa. I chased after this guy for 4 years. Never got him. But that buck grew up and lived in the exact same hill as that average 2-point. He actually grew up and lived in the same hill as this young 4-point who I videotaped. Look at this. Same hill. That's a great buck, right? Anybody would shoot that 4-point blacktail, but he's just a young buck. Look at those tiny little bases. A little bit of knurling he's getting there, but from knowing what's alive there, this thing was going to be, probably did become an absolute monster. So a few of the points I'm trying to make, I don't script any of this shit either. It just comes out of my mouth as I go, right? But what I wanted to get across to you guys is if you go out there and hunt down successfully, find shed antlers where you hunt, it just puts you so far ahead of the game, because you potentially, when you find that shed antler of an absolute monster, like look at this one. This thing is huge. This is an absolute gargantuan blacktail buck. This is coincidentally came off my largest blacktail I ever killed, and he was a 154-inch blacktail, and this is one of his sheds. Crazy, right? But anyway, when you do find a shed like this, what you've done is you've found his absolute most secret place ever, his secure bedroom. That's huge, right? You take note of that. But you're not going to find that out unless you go looking. You have to go look. You have to go look, right? You have to go find those sheds. And when you do, you start learning and you don't tell anybody. Now, how I found my best spot yet is years ago. I went by looking for trails, looking for signs of deer tracks, listening to the gossip in my community, listening to where somebody might have seen a monster buck and they slipped up and started talking. And then I started doing my detective work quietly, all by myself. And then one day I found some tracks. Well, I've done this for a few different spots, but this one particular spot, which I'm showing where most of these antlers came from, I found this trail and I started walking it back. I'm trying to figure out what drain all these deer must be coming from, or where did this huge buck come from, the one that was sighted or the one that I saw, the tracks that I saw, the taxi driver, the firefighter saw crossing the highway and on coming home late at night or whatever, right? And I started looking for prints, and I found the prints. And I recognized these prints as being absolutely huge. And then I started walking those trails back in the main trail and all the way up the mountain. And then they all funneled back into a main trail, and I followed that main trail, turned into what I learned later was a migration trail. And then I started putting trail cameras along it. And then I started to get this one huge buck, the first true monster I came across. I nicknamed him Brutus. And this guy was absolutely ridiculous. Huge. This is a 140-inch plus 3-point black-tailed deer. Look at the bases on that thing. As an example, here's this real nice, 100-inch black-tailed deer. Look at this. Look at the difference. You see that? You see how special this thing is? Oops. Look at that thing. And I went after this buck. He was a 3-point for 3 years, and then on this last year I saw him. He actually sprouted into a pincher 4 at the back, but he's always this massive main frame, huge 3-point. And the last year he busted off into 4, but he was just a 3-point forever. I didn't give a shit. This thing was one of the biggest black-tailed deer I've ever seen in my frickin' life. He's probably 250 pounds. And this, yes, it's inside the Boone and Crockett line. This buck led me to where I have harvested a lot of my monster bucks. I tracked him in the snow, and he led me to this one particular mountain, and there's mountain slopes and these ledges, and that's how I found my spot, following this guy right here, obsessing about him. And I followed him, and he gave it up. And I only found one of his shed antlers, and I found it on that hill just across the valley, up 400 yards. Boom, there it was in a rock slide one day. Just about fell over. Never found his other antler. Never found a previous antler once. Not once. And believe me, I looked like you would not believe. But as you look, you come across all sorts of other prizes. Like, look at this spike. Look at this thing. Crazy, incredible knurling all down the bottom. Look at how long this thing is. Give you an idea, this is a 150-inch blacktail right here. Look at that. Look at that spike. Call it a spike, call it a fork, I guess. But look at that thing. Found that on the same hill. Ever see this guy before? Nope. Did I get him on a trail camera? Not once. Crazy, right? And look at this one. Another one. Absolute ridiculous spike buck. Different bucks. See that? There's the bases. Different bucks altogether, but pretty cool. You find these treasures when you're out there looking for shed antlers. A lot of you guys might say, oh yeah, that's a mule deer you got in your hand. That's not a blacktail, that's a mule deer, right? No, this is a mule deer. This is a mule deer shed. A big mule deer. There's a big difference. This is a huge mule deer shed. And this is a huge, ridiculously huge, one of the largest in the province of British Columbia blacktail sheds. Big difference, right? Big difference. Was the story behind this monster doubled up? This would have been a 240-ish inch mule deer. Look at that thing. How crazy is that? It's just huge. And how I found this is during the highway project. Sea to Sky Highway is being rebuilt all the way up to Whistler, BC, and there's like hours of waiting in the traffic stops there, and I had to go to Vancouver for something. And then right by I was getting supplies for a job site. There's a huge pawn store right there, and I thought I'm gonna go in there and see if they got any good deals and tools, right? And I went in there, and here's this frickin' shed antler, mule deer antler, sitting on the shelf in this pawn store. And I'm looking at the guy working in there, and I'm like, this guy doesn't know anything about antlers. So I think I had a $2 coin in my pocket, and I took it up to the counter, and I go, how much you want for this coat hanger? And he goes, I don't know, what's it worth? And I go, I don't know, I got $2. He goes, okay. I gave him $2, and I took the shed. I couldn't wait. As soon as I got stuck in that traffic waiting, I got this. I went in the back, and I got my tape measure out of the box. The truck started measuring it. And if you doubled it up, it would have been around 240-inch buck. Whoa. But the sadness of that is nobody will ever know where it came from. Unless somebody recognizes it here, probably not. Who knows, a long time ago. But anyway, there's a quick, I hope I'm making sense here, but there's just a quick examples of what you learn from your hill and how a trail camera isn't going to teach everything. But if you go up there and you put in the time, and you put in the time on that hill, and you find out where those hills are, then you're going to start putting some very, very important clues together. And one of the more important clues that I appreciate is when the ground of the forest tells me what kind of genetics are running around there. That, for me, is absolutely a very, very, very important factor for how I hunt and where I hunt and when I hunt and why I hunt there. But another thing I'm going to point out to you guys and girls that really want to get a true absolute hammer monster blacktail buck like this one is a buck like this who's got big, deep, clean forks on his rack, his genetics. He more than likely is going to have 4 points on his one antler at a real young age, like 2 years old. He's going to have his 4 points up top. It's something to think about when you look over those deer and trying to judge their age, right? You see a buck like this, when meanwhile stuff like this is running around, don't shoot this deer. Don't do it. Don't do it. I know you can't eat antlers. But if you let this guy go, his meat's going to double in size by the time he gets mature, right? Same as this young 4 point right here. Look at this young guy. They got 4 points really early in life. That means they are going to be something like this if they get to live that long. That's what these bucks look like when they're young. They get their 4 points early. Okay? Important point to make. Then you got other bucks, like this old boy, who I knew for 6 years, and he's just a fork. He's just a fork. That's it. He never even sprouted this one. He always had that bump too. But that's all he ever was. He just his average run-of-the-mill fork blacktail. It's all he was ever going to be. But it's not hard to figure that out by the weight, by the knurling. He's just a fork, right? If he was going to be anything better, way younger in age, he would have been a 4 point or a clean 3 point. He would have already been starting his main frame points, okay? So what am I trying to get at with sharing that is take your time, be careful of who you harvest, all right? If you want your spot and you've put a lot of time into that spot and learning your spot, and you want some real special deer to come off that spot and your reward for all your effort, you have to manage it properly, and you have to recognize a young deer, the characteristics of a young monster deer, right? Characteristics of a young, potential monster buck. Let him go. Let him go, let him grow. There you go. Just a quick ramble-bamble without rehearsing or writing on a piece of paper what I wanted to share. I just want to share with everybody, roughly, quickly, what I have learned from successfully finding shed antlers and learning what's going on a particular mountain or two or three, keeping that information to myself at all costs, and taking it from there. And remember, the most successful hunters of antlered game, one of their common traits they all share is they all have big shed piles, right? You want to get great big huge bucks and bulls, you have to start learning your spot and finding their antlers. It's not just finding an antler, that's pretty cool. There's a whole bunch of knowledge that goes down and gets registered and stays in your brain from finding these shed antlers. Trust me, it's true. Oh, I wish I got this guy. This was the first monster I obsessed about. And then Brutus came. I found Brutus while I was looking for this guy. And I got my eyes on this guy once. And I had to shoot. He's on the other side of a river. And I had my bow, and I could not. And the cedars were sloping down, and I couldn't. Wasn't enough room to arc. I could see him straight shot, and I had not enough room to arc my arrow. You want to talk frustration? Whoo, baby. Anyway, there you go, you guys. It's very, very, very important to go shed hunting. It's very important to be successful at shed hunting. It's very important to not share your information and where you found your sheds with anybody at all costs. And if you do share the sheds you found, lie. Lie your face off about where you found them. Trust me. And start looking, I'm going to say to be safe, unless you live where black-tailed deer are and there's no snow on the ground, then big deal. It's not that much of an effort to go for a hike, right? Big deal. It's healthy. It's good for you. You can learn trails, especially right now. The trails really stand out. So sometimes you can find trails that you didn't even know existed because the underbrush is all gone, all the leaves are gone, you can see for quite a ways. And then that's more valuable information that you learn as you're hiking, right? But for the most part, if your bucks are where there's heavy snow load or you're limited on time, I wouldn't start shed hunting. Deer shed hunting for me here in coastal British Columbia, I wouldn't start until the last week of March. April is game on. And we're talking go time until the leaves sprout up and everything grows over and hides them. But there you go. Quick ramble video for the channel. Quick heads up what I'm about to do, and a quick heads up that I'm going to start sharing how-tos on here and possibly on the website when it comes to sheep, bears, wolves, elk, moose, what else? Mule deer, blacktail, whitetail. I'm not a whitetail murderer, but I know how to find them. And how to do it, how to save money, and how to get good at it. And I'm going to teach you how. I'm going to share with you what I do, all right? And what makes me think that I might know what I'm doing? Well, I've been lucky a few times, but more importantly, to back it up, people have been paying me big money to make sure they're successful at hunting for a lot of years. So there. I'll be back later.